Welcome back to the United Pubcast, the podcast of the official Man United Supporters Club here in Sydney for a bit of football chat. It seems like we're chatting about sort of everything else at the moment, but these games are going to sort of come thick and fast over the next month. And this is the third game this month, third or fourth game out of 9. It is creeping up, so it is good to sort of get back into the swing of things. And obviously after the Everton game, in a winning mood. After the disappointing defeat against Manchester City. So fingers crossed this return to form can continue. And look, at the end of the day, it is at home to Omonia Nicosia. So you would assume the winning form will continue. But then that obviously goes into a huge fixture on the weekend against Newcastle United at Old Trafford, I believe, as well. But obviously got George in as a late replacement for Larry. George, keeping well, my friend?
Yeah, as well as I can be. Ideally, would be... Oh, actually, it's not too bad. It's a 6 a.m. kickoff instead of the audacious, awful 3:45 kickoffs that we have to get up for. But yeah, looking forward to it. I think we're both going to go with a bit of squad rotation in our lineups. Whether that actually happens or not, that's still to be determined. And yeah, looking forward to discussing it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the first comment here, I'll just say g'day to some people in the live chat. And Isaac brings this point up here. Good to see you, Isaac. Hope all is well. I really hope the starting 11 put the game to bed early so I can put a few of the youth players. That is my thinking. I would like to play a heavily rotated side and a lot of youth players. But ultimately, okay, we only beat this team by a goal last time. We do need to sort of get the job done. And that is my thinking. I hope Erik sort of really has the plan of, okay, first 45 minutes, let's get the job done. Let's be 4 or 5-0 up. Now, obviously, that's very unlikely. But in an ideal situation, that would be the plan. I think that's everyone's plan. I think that's Bournemouth's plan. When they play Man City, you'd hope to be 5-0 up at halftime. But fingers crossed that can be the case with Manchester United. And then you can just make the 4 or 5 subs at halftime and sort of really rotate. But I think given the sort of dubious spot we are in the group in regards to the ambition of finishing first, we do need the 3 points and you do need to start strong. I know last time we did get what we wanted in a Europa League lineup away at Astana. We got exactly what we wanted with the team. The result didn't go our way. But Adam from Man Cave United, good to see you, mate. Hope all is well. Jamie from Northern Ireland, hope all is well, mate. Good time for a stream for you. And now that clocks have changed for us, it's 7:30 in the evening for us. And Rob from It's a Football Thing, good to have you here, mate. But George, before we get into that, and we'll get into the start 11s and bring those up and sort of discuss one or two other things around sort of Manchester United and football that sort of will have it sort of a trickle-on effect at Man United. There's a few interesting talking points out there. But in regards to this Europa League group and Manchester United and Erik ten Hag, what's the feeling for you in regards to this? Like, a lot of people are sort of a little bit worried that we're not, or we still could top the group, but potentially we're not going to top this group. And everyone's looking at teams sort of dropping down from the Champions League and what that is potentially going to be like. Just what are you feeling? Because I'm relatively, I wouldn't say, well, I'm very confident going through. Of course, we're going to sort of qualify for the next stage. However, I'm really not fussed if we get a Champions League team. If we're going to get them in the round of 16 or 32 or whatever it is, or the semi-final or the final, you're going to play them eventually. So like, there's this talk about this sort of fixture congestion. If you play in the Europa League, not the Champions League, it's potentially 2 more games. It's not this whole new campaign you're going to be playing in the Europa League. So I'm not overly fussed over first or second, but just sum up your thoughts for me.
Neither am I. If anything, like just broadly on that format of the competition, I actually like how it is now with the Europa League, where second is going to play one of the Champions League teams that drops down, because for those teams that do want to prioritise the Europa League, that actually gives you an incentive to finish first. Previously, there was no incentive to finish first or second in that group. Just getting through, you could have got a Champions League team even if you finished first. You could have got another team in the Europa League that finished second if you were second in your group. But as for United's case, personally, I don't think it matters too much. Look, some of those teams that could be dropping down from the Champions League, who knows? We could get Juventus, we could get Barcelona.
Yeah,
that'd be an interesting tie.
Well, you'd like that. Ultimately, look, you get knocked out in the round of 32 or the
at least give us the illusion we're in the Champions League.
Yeah, exactly. And look, nothing bigger than, you could imagine a European fixture at Old Trafford between United and Barcelona, or United and Inter Milan. Like that, those are, Juventus. I mean, those are sort of what European football is about. But Adam, good to see you in the chat as well, mate. Hope all is well. And Steve here, the Aussie Gooner. If you are in need of some Arsenal content, go check the Aussie Gooner out. The Europa League, gotta love it. We're all discovering new teams. Well, yes, we didn't know about this.
It's going to be like when we discover new teams there.
Well, that is the thing. Like, we've discussed it before in regards to the way we support Man United on the TV from the other side of the world. But the sort of a huge part of Manchester United is the away travelling support, who are arguably the best in the world. They love this. They love going away to Cyprus. They love going away to places like this. And so that is, while yes, we would prefer Champions League on the TV, ultimately it is good for the fans, or obviously those match travelling fans. But Erik ten Hag, in terms of, you say, okay, you're not fussed and I'm not fussed. I know some people in the live chat sort of do have not a fearfulness of finishing second, but they really are want to sort of avoid that potential banana skin of a tough Champions League team. Erik ten Hag, does he bother it? Like, is he sort of playing his full strength team in these next 3 games? Because to top the group, I think you do have to win these 3 games. You'd have to get the result against Sociedad away in Spain, and who knows, potentially sort of goal difference could potentially come into it. But Erik ten Hag, is he going all out for this, or is he just going to get second and then cruise?
I think he might rotate for this game. I do think against Real Sociedad, he will go full strength and try and top the group in that, assuming that we win on Friday morning. He will go full strength against Sociedad.
Well, our next 2 games are Sheriff and Omonia at home. Like, we've got 6 points.
We got Sociedad 5th and then Sheriff last.
I thought that was going to be the case. Larry corrected me and said no, Sheriff was 5th. No, that's the way I always thought.
I'll check that again. But if that's the case, and we won every game and we've run the 2 games leading into it, I think he's almost cornered himself into going full strength against Real Sociedad.
Yeah.
In the sense that we take goal difference aside, we have to win either 2-0 or actually 2-1 will get us through as well on away goals.
Yeah, well, there's head-to-head and goal difference. And look, who knows, but those are hurdles to cross in a little bit.
In head-to-head, away goals count, but then when you get into the round of 24 or 16, or 24, I say, because it's Europa League, then 16 and quarterfinals, then away goals don't count. What a stupid rule, UEFA, seriously.
I've lost track of away goals and what they mean and sort of when they come into effect, if they're extra time or not extra time. Seems to change every week like VAR does. But we'll bring up the starting 11s, George, and sort of I'll bring up mine first. And this is one where I think on the weekend or against Everton, I think 90% of people sort of could really pick what the lineup was going to be. Against Newcastle, I think we're pretty confident in what the starting 11 is going to be. This one, who knows? Because I think there is a need to potentially go strong, but also a potential or a real chance to and a need to rotate as well. So I think finding that balance of going strong and rotating with the eye to Newcastle and who's suspended, who's injured, it throws up a whole heap of potential scenarios. So in the live chat, do get me your thoughts on my start 11s, and we'll throw up George's in a little bit. But I'll bring mine up here, and I'll talk myself through it. So I've got David De Gea. Yes, I understand bringing Dubravka or even Heaton in there. I just think it'll be De Gea, so I'll go with him. I think it's one of those things. I think maybe yes in match day 5 or 6, depending on the scenario, I could see potentially a goalkeeping change there. But I think David De Gea is going to keep his spot. This is a chance where I'll rest Martinez. I'll give Martinez the night off and sort of rest him up for Newcastle and give Varane those minutes after sort of coming back from injury, maybe even 45 minutes each between the 2. Not sure of Harry Maguire's situation. I assume he's still going to be out.
I don't think he's fit to play yet.
Yeah, so I'll go Lindelof and Varane and give Martinez the night off and maybe 45 minutes for one or the other. Malacia, I think, comes in for Luke Shaw with the idea of Luke Shaw starting against Newcastle. I think he was very good against Everton, so he'd keep his spot. But this is a chance where I don't think there's a huge drop-off if Malacia plays, so play a strong player in Malacia at left-back. I would like to see I would play Aaron Wan-Bissaka in this, but I don't think he's fit. I'm not sure. I think you might have gone with him, but I'm not sure if his fitness concerns. Do let us know in the live chat if Aaron Wan-Bissaka is fit. I just think Diogo Dalot will play. He's almost like that Christian Erickson debate. You think, okay, this is the game he's going to be rested. This is the game he's going to have the night off, and he plays. And there I go further forward into my lineup. Again, saying not drop Christian Erickson, give him the night off. Every time I've said that, he plays. I think, has he started every game, Christian Erickson?
From memory, yeah, he has.
Maybe the Sociedad game, maybe the first game. No, I think he did start against
No, he didn't start against Sociedad.
I think there was one game, potentially one game he didn't start, but he's an ever-present. And look, I would potentially be resting him, but I think he's going to play. So I'm giving Bruno, in Erik ten Hag's eyes, I think he'll give Bruno the night off, or at least a half off. And I think we'll see a combination of Casemiro and McTominay. And the reason I would see definitely McTominay is he's not available for Newcastle. He's obviously picked up that suspension. So I think McTominay will come in. And I think this is where the Erik ten Hag plan, in my opinion, is there with Casemiro, just for the first 45 minutes. Get the job done. If we're 2 or 3 goals up, get Casemiro off. Maybe you can drop McTominay and bring someone further forward. I think Anthony will maybe be rested for the weekend, and you put in Anthony Langer, who hasn't played for a while. I think he's in desperate need of minutes. He's not even coming off the bench, so I would think you'd potentially a chance to throw him in there. Jadon Sancho in for Marcus Rashford, I think, is a no-brainer. But however, in saying that, is Marcus Rashford still going to play? There's a very strong case he could be the striker over Cristiano Ronaldo, because I would assume Ronaldo is going to start against Newcastle. So how does Erik ten Hag weigh up the fitness issue with Ronaldo in terms of back-to-back fixtures? Do you play him in 2 games in a row? I personally would. Maybe, again, for 45 minutes. I'm really hoping we can get the job done, as Isaac said earlier in the chat. Get this done in the first half. Then you can rotate, okay, your Rafael Varane's, Casemiro, Ronaldo, you can get them off and then potentially rotate the team. But there is one or two things here. Isaac saying here, we had to start Ronaldo. He has unfinished business. It'll be good for him. Oh, yeah, against Omonia, he obviously missed a few chances. So, yeah, I think he has that in him as well. He'll remember missing those chances against those, and he definitely will want to get those back. Munzie, good to see you, mate. Hope all is well. Make sure you go over and subscribe to Munzie. I'm surprised De Gea hasn't been rested. Look, no issue if he is rested. If someone wants to throw Dubravka or Heaton in there, no issue. I have a feeling it'll be David De Gea. Potentially against Sheriff at home, that's where I could see rotation. Or I think Aston Villa in the League Cup. I think that will be potentially the first rotation for David De Gea. But George, I'll bring your line up here, and I had a bit of a peek of it a little bit earlier. Now, you've included a player who I have been desperate to throw in as a curveball over the last couple of weeks. I've always thought he's potentially going to be sort of in with a shout of starting, and it would be acting as a huge surprise to everyone. I haven't done it. You have, but you've surprised me where you've put him. So I'll bring up your starting 11, and you have gone for the Uruguayan. I like the inclusion. I don't know why you've included him in the area of the field you have, though. So I'd love to get your thoughts there. And you have rotated the goalkeeper as well, and similar look on front three, obviously, with Rashford over Ronaldo instead. So talk to me about your thinking with this team.
Okay, so the goalkeeping situation, seriously, if Dubravka's at the club and we're not going to play him against the worst team in the group, when are we ever going to play him unless it's round 3 of the League Cup? Aaron Wan-Bissaka, for me, how many games can Dallo start in a row?
I just have a feeling it's a fitness thing. I'm not sure if he's available, but yeah, I agree. If he's there and ready, I agree.
For me, Lindelof's not going to play on the weekend, so he plays today. Varane, he only came off the bench against Everton coming back from injury. I'd like to get him some match fitness back, and I do think he has enough sharpness to back up against Newcastle. With Malacia and Shaw, that's a flip of a coin. Whichever one Ten Hag thinks will start against Newcastle will have the rest or the night off against Omonia. And I think to Shaw's credit, I thought he was man of the match against Everton, so he deserves to start against Newcastle. Moving forward into midfield, McTominay obviously suspended. Palestri, let's touch on that one. And the reason why I've put him in that area of the pitch is because that's where I've seen him play for Uruguay when he has played.
That was my next question in regards to play. I've been desperate to put him in one or two teams. I'm thinking, I could see him out wide. I could see just a hunch, just from, I don't know if it's training photos or interviews or altercations, interactions on the bench. I just have a feeling Palestri is quite close in Erik Ten Hag's plans. However, my question I was going to throw to you in regards to Palestri, do we underestimate him a little bit in regards to
100%.
I think not so much his quality, but his status within the club and status within the game. Just in regards to, I think the obvious comparison is Alejandro Garnacho. Everyone wants to see Garnacho play, but I have a feeling Palestri is ahead. And when I actually look at it, who do I think is a better player? I'm not sure. You could flip a coin. Some would say Garnacho, some would say Palestri. However, what I do look at Palestri, he's had a year of senior football. He starts he's involved with the Uruguay national team.
Started for Uruguay before.
So I'm just thinking, he's far further along developed than Alejandro Garnacho. So I think if there was a shout of one of them coming in as one of the young players to sort of break through this season, it is potentially Palestri.
And I think it should be. How often do you see a midfielder starting for a South American team that's going to the World Cup that can't get a game for United? How often do we see that? And personally, I'd rather... if I was talking about let me just put this out there. This is a preferred 11 that I actually think Ten Hag will do. Realistically, it'll probably be Fred that plays this game in Palestri's position, but I just cannot stand the thought of putting with Fred together again. With regards to him versus Garnacho, obviously different positions of the pitch, so it's different qualities will stand out for different players. But I do see a scenario where both can break through this season. Moving forward, the reason why I've gone Bruno over Erickson purely because he's the captain. Erickson does need a rest eventually. And if there's one player that I do trust to play 3 games or start 3 games in the space of 7 days at 100%, Bruno versus Erickson, I'm going Bruno for that, purely from a fitness perspective. And if we're treating the Europa League with any seriousness, you'd ideally want your captain out there.
Bruno actually does have a fantastic, and maybe someone correct me wrong, and maybe he's missed 6 games in a row, I'm not sure. But off the top of my head, just as you mentioned that, he does have a great fitness record. He always seems to be available. It's almost like Harry Maguire's injured. He had an injury at the end of last season, but Harry Maguire for those 2 or 3 years never picked up an injury. I get the feeling Bruno Fernandes is made a stone like that as well. He's always available, which is a huge trait. Whether you like him or don't like him, if you're available, that's a huge plus.
And I guess that boosts his captaincy credentials moving forward if Maguire is to leave the club at the end of the season. But moving forward, Anthony Elanga, I agree with you. He needs minutes. I actually think he works defensively well on the right, which I think is something we're going to need because their main chance is going to be off the counter attack. So that's going to be nullified by how well we get back in transition. Now, I'll go Sancho. I'll finish on Rashford. Sancho, it's one of those things. He didn't play against Everton. He comes in. Now, with Rashford, you'll not get anyone that hates seeing Rashford play in the middle more than me. And the only reason I've done this is because Martial's not fit, and I think Ronaldo started against Newcastle, and I don't think it's fair on a 30-year-old to start 3 games in 7 days. I just don't think that's fair on Ronaldo. With regards to Rashford, the reason why I just don't like him through the middle, especially against a team that's going to play a low block against us, in my opinion, he just he doesn't possess the footballing ability to pick up, to come back, do link up play, hold the ball up. For example, beat a player one, or that's going into his winger ability, but beating a player one-on-one. For me, he's just the perfect player to have when you need a guy to run in behind. For me, he's nothing more than that. But we'll get on to, I'm sure we'll have many chats about Rashford later on. But while he's playing well, long may it continue. And if he has to play through the middle in this game, so be it.
Yeah, it's interesting in regards to what we think in our mind. Okay, Omonia at home at Old Trafford will make the pitch bigger and we should dominate the game. But it is one of those games where, because we're going to dominate so much, they are going to sit deep, and then will there be that space? It'll be interesting how Erik Ten Hag sort of does set the team out there. But I'd love to get everyone's thoughts in the live chat. And before we move on to one or two other topics, George, a name who should really be first name on the team sheet in regards to this game. Neither of us mentioned him. No one's brought him up in the live chat. Didn't come up in any of those starting 11s, not even a hint of it.
You're talking about Van der Beek, isn't he injured?
No, well, potentially, yes, he is injured, but I'm just thinking...
He wasn't on the bench against Everton.
But that is my thing. I'm thinking if he's unfortunately injured and not available, I think he is back in training. Now,
I would have put him in the team
Erik Ten Hag,
on the bench.
But I'm just thinking, if he was fit, though, could you see him? Could you see Erik Ten Hag playing him? Because at the moment, when he has been available, Erik Ten Hag hasn't been using him. So I'm just thinking, again, maybe unfortunate circumstances, maybe it's just physically impossible to include him here in regards to his fitness. But if he wasn't included and he was available, I'm just thinking this has to be the end of Donny van der Beek's time at United if he's not playing in these games.
I think it's unfortunate that he's injured at this time when there is such a need for rotation. I do think if he recovers, we will see him in a few games, whether it be starting or from the bench. I don't think Ten Hag doesn't rate him at all. Like we saw in the first 2 games, he's brought him on both times. He's done quite well when he's come on as well. Solid 6 out of 10. He hasn't done anything wrong. But with regards to how well Bruno and Erickson and Casemiro have been playing, we've understand the limitations of McTominay's game, but he's played well when he has played. It's one thing, you've got to earn your spot back. It's not just handed on a silver platter to you.
Yeah. Oh, no, look, it goes for everyone, whether left back, right back, in central midfield, wherever. Definitely are. But there's this feeling around Donny van der Beek at the moment. It's just cursed. Maybe it was the Paul Pogba curse. Maybe put it on Donny van der Beek. Because I still think when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer brought Donny van der Beek in, it was under the impression that Paul Pogba was going to leave. And who knows, maybe that relationship maybe went sour under the whole issue in regards to Paul Pogba. But sort of moving on from that, and actually before, look, you know I don't like him, George. Score prediction?
Oh, good question. I'm going to say it's a really scrappy 3-0. It's not going to be a great watch, but I reckon we'll get the 3-0.
I think that's the first time. Well, look, I understand your thinking. I think that's the first time 3-0 has ever been described as scrappy. But I do understand your thinking, and I'll go scrappy.
The reason being, it's one of those things that I think it'll be 3-0, but it's a game that we could win 5 or 6 or 7, but we won't because we just struggle on the final ball.
Yeah, no, definitely. Adam here, nicely said, George. So, but in regards to that, we'll move on. There's 2 other topics I want to touch on. And the first one, look, it's not Manchester United related, but we bring in the whole Paul Pogba drama in regards to the last couple of months and sort of what he's done and who he's done it to, or allegedly, obviously. I think all of us side on Paul Pogba's side. Fingers crossed all is okay in his family life. But Kylian Mbappe. Now, at the moment, just rumours, but it has come from reliable sources in France. And when they speak, this paper in France seems to be there's something in it. And obviously there's something. No. Well, one of the journalists, he works for ESPN. I think he broke it. Julian Laurens, I think. But all the reputable outlets are going. And at the moment, look, we're in October. He can't go anywhere. He's got a World Cup. He's not going anywhere. And obviously, if a transfer fee had to come in, it would cost hundreds of millions. So he's not signing for Real Madrid tomorrow. He's not signing for Manchester City tomorrow. He's still a PSG player. I think he scored in the Champions League this morning from memory.
Yeah, he scored a penalty this morning, yeah.
So However, it does look like he wants out of PSG, and if there's a powerful footballer in the world, it is Kylian Mbappe. Hell, he's bigger than PSG if you actually look at his contract. So he does have a lot of power. So I'm just thinking if he wants something, he will get it. What does he want? Where is he going to go? Because any club who is going to buy him is going to have to fork out. I don't know the word to describe what wages he would demand. The transfer fee, would it be, I don't know, 100, 200 million? Who knows? I'll sort of pluck that figure out of wherever. But I'm just thinking, what do you make of the Mbappe situation? Because we've always heard mumblings, okay, he wants out or he wants in. He signed a contract the other month. But this one does look like, well, if he wants out, he's going to get out. But how on earth is he going to get out when you weigh up the situation?
Well, see, the thing from Mbappe's perspective, like from him and his manager's perspective, maybe not from a footballing sense, but from a personal financial sense, he's played this perfectly because when he signed that massive deal that effectively made him the sporting director at PSG, he only signed a 2-year deal. So they're going to be doing this dance again in the next summer. So that means that if PSG really want to keep him, they've really got to up the offer. And if he wants to walk, he can walk. So from Mbappe's personal end and from his manager's end, they've played it perfectly. PSG shot themselves in the foot. So the
reason I want to bring look, and I completely agree, but the reason I want to bring Manchester United into this is, and this is not the player, the isolated part of the player and his skill and ability. I love. I think he's brilliant. I think he's potentially best in the world. However, everything that comes with Mbappe, my first instinct is just stay clear. Do not go near him, even if he's a good. And he's obviously a very selfish player, which I don't think suits Manchester United at the moment. So for that part of his game, I don't like. I don't want it Man United. But just the baggage and the circus that he would bring and the potential issues he would bring to the dressing room, it is a simple stay clear of Mbappe. What a nightmare. Don't do it. However, Richard Arnold and Manchester United and the Glazers think differently. And my God, wouldn't they be lining up Haaland at Manchester City and Mbappe at Manchester United, the two next best players in the world? And I'm just thinking there will be something in it. Now, he's not going to end up at Manchester United. I highly doubt that. I would be willing to put my house on that. However, Richard Arnold and the Glazers, I'm sure, are on the phone now, and they're weighing up the options. They will definitely be in discussions with Mbappe's team.
For a player of that caliber, it'd be stupid not to have a discussion with him and see where his mind's actually at. But let's look at it from Mbappe's perspective. I could name 5 other clubs he'd want to go to before United.
Oh yeah,
that's selfish. That's personally selfish. He doesn't have too much regard for the history of a club and pride for a club, especially if we don't finish in the top 4 this year. Which, don't get me wrong, I think we will, but I do think that Real Madrid is the end goal for Mbappe. I think he just signed that contract because, like, if he really had an intention of staying at PSG in the role in the capacity that he has, he would have signed a deal that's longer than 2 years. He just did this so that in 12 he just delayed this dance for 12 months' time so that he can get an even bigger pay packet at Real Madrid, either through a transfer fee, which I agree with you, will cost around 200 million if they want him, or if they want to wait 12 months, they're probably going to have to be paying him £1.5 million a week as a free agent.
Could you imagine what he wages do? Look, I think it's something forgotten in Kylian Mbappe's career that he's already scored in a World Cup final. Could you imagine if he goes and scores in another World Cup final and wins it for France? What he could demand on his wages?
That's going to be the one thing that, at the end of the day, holds him over Haaland in 20 years' time when we're talking about the Haaland versus Mbappe debate.
But that is my thinking, and a lot of people in the live chat share my opinions here in terms of Adam, no way into Mbappe. Isaac, I don't want someone with his disruptive personality coming into our dressing room, which I agree. Steve here, Mbappe makes the Glazers look like saints. Well, the Glazers is my next discussion in regards to Sir Jim Ratcliffe. But yeah, if you do look at his behaviour, look, I don't like the selfishness of how he plays. But the actual ability of it, I think,
in my opinion, he's the best footballer in the world right now, purely on footballing ability.
But in regards to the way he is acting, I do agree with Steve. They're just that he seems like an absolute dickhead. You just think you don't need that, especially the way the Manchester United are at the moment. And Adam here saying he's such a good talent.
Why PSG is stupid enough to cave to that offer, effectively make him the sporting director, which mind you, puts him in charge of more than just their football team, puts him as the director of their volleyball, their basketball, and their handball teams as well. So why do you want a footballer in charge of that anyway? Sure, do what you will.
Well, PSG have been a mess for a while, not just these last couple of months. If you do look back at some of their decisions since they did get that takeover. But Adam here saying he's such a good talent, but the headaches he comes are definitely not worth it. Which, look, I completely agree. But we'll move on to, well, this is part of it. Because in terms of if Mbappe, I don't think he's going to end up, and he's not going to end up at Man United. But if he was to, it would obviously involve the Glazers, or if not the Glazers, a potential new owner. And Jim Ratcliffe has been talking. Now, I don't think there is much in this. I think it's just sort of Okay, it is what it is. Don't think anything has changed. But when you do hear it from the horse's mouth, I think it is worth discussing. Came out, Jim Ratcliffe did an interview, like a sit-down sort of with the Financial Times, and sort of was grilled about his interest in Manchester United. He has said he has spoken with the Glazers, but he said, honestly, look, if they're up for sale, I would like to buy them. He said, I've spoken to the Glazers and they're simply not up for sale. And just has it changed anything for you in regards to this interview? Did you think, okay, I believe him, I don't believe him? Just your thoughts, because it is a bit of a talking point.
My stance on that is the same. I think I was on a podcast with you a few months back when the interest first came out from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and my stance was the Glazers have shown no intent to sell United when we haven't even been in Europe. So the only other massive financial defect you can get from United, if you're not going to be in Europe, is not being in the Premier League at all. And realistically, we're not going to be relegated. So if they're not going to sell when we're not in Europe, the only other time they'd sell is if we're relegated, and that's not going to happen. So for that reason,
do you think in regards to
we can keep generating those profits? Why would they sell?
Yeah. However, if we're not successful, if we don't sort of get it backwards or back to a sort of upwards trajectory in regards to success and the finances, there's no sort of hiding from the fact that Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, clubs like Real Madrid, PSG, Bayern Munich, they're always on the up and up, and Manchester United, while still at the top table, are starting to potentially sort of drop down one or two sets. I'm just thinking in regards to the Glazers' end game, in regards to selling the club for billions of pounds, whether that be in 2 years or 22 years, they do want to sell for as much money as they can. If you weigh up at United's, where are they going to be at their peak in regards to the value? Let's say we're at our peak today, and you say, okay, we're not going to sell because we'll still be in the Premier League or we'll still be getting European money. Well, if we're going to be at £5 billion now, in 10 years we might be at $4 billion, then at $3 billion. I'm just thinking, are we potential, or could the Glazers potentially see Man United at its peak now in regards to its commerciality?
Not if we go on another rise, because the way, like, if we were still going in an upwards trajectory when we weren't even in Europe, like, when have we realistically reached our peak? Ultimately, inflation has its impact on the value of clubs. So I just don't see how the value of the club depreciates.
This is where my big fear, and we'll start to wrap up now, but everyone in the live chat, do get your thoughts in on this, because my big fear is our biggest sort of share spike over the last couple of years was when Cristiano Ronaldo signed. Now, in a year or two, Cristiano Ronaldo is going to leave, and that is my big fear with this Kylian Mbappe thing. Now, yes, I don't think Mbappe is going to come. I bet my house on it. However, the potential scenario for the Glazers in terms of sort of getting a bit of a spike in that share price and increasing the value of the club, if they get the world's most marketable footballer in Kylian Mbappe, the share price for Manchester United skyrockets. So I'm just thinking it is such an appealing business transaction for them to bring Kylian Mbappe to the club. Now, again, I don't think it's going to happen, but it is a huge fear of mine because that is their goal, where my goal is winning 3 points on a Saturday, and I don't think Mbappe helps that.
100%, I agree. Like, I agree with you. He's not going to be there. But look, I think from now and the time that Ronaldo ultimately leaves, whether it be now or next year, I think within 24 months there will be another generational talent that does come through, whoever that is at whatever club, and I think we'll be in the market for him, and that will be our new marquee man.
Fingers crossed. Oh, who knows? It could be Anthony. Could be Anthony. I did a 5-minute video yesterday. If you haven't checked, go back and just the last video on the channel. I had a 5-minute chat about Anthony, because we're not talking about Anthony. We didn't even include him in our starting 11s for this one, but I think he has been beyond, well, sort of on par with brilliant this season in terms of it's gone perfectly in regards to sort of flying under the radar. He's performing, he's delivering, and no one's really talking about that price tag, which I think could have been a sort of unnecessary distraction. So do let me know your thoughts on Anthony if you go back and do look at that video. But George, before we wrap up, is there anything else sort of we've missed in regards to a bit of news tonight?
Not really. I'll just answer Adam's question in the comments. Is it right that Mbappe's contract was to own part of the club? Not right now. It wasn't. Maybe the reason why he signed that 2-year deal is because the next upgrade in his contract would be that part ownership. But right now, what he does have as a stake in the club is that he's their sporting director, and that's across all sports, not just football. For whatever reason, I think that's just bizarre. But PSG,
yeah, it's a crazy thing to have a seat at the table in regards to the decision making. You might as well own part of the club in regards to.
Oh yeah,
but
he can write his own contract.
Yeah,
as a sporting director.
Decent life he has, to be fair to him. Isaac here, it seems that Jim was put on the spot in regards to the Man United purchase. I wouldn't read too much into what he said. Look, obviously there's a bit of PR behind it in regards to no one was talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe 2 years ago. Okay, now we're talking about him because of the Glazers thing, and he's taking advantage of that. Now, he was in for Chelsea.
We were talking about Saudis before they bought Newcastle.
So that look, he was in for Chelsea. Well, how in for Chelsea he was, only he will know. But there was an interest in Chelsea. He obviously owns Nice as well over in France. So there is a desire or an interest in football for Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his business. So I'm sure there is something there. If anything, if it was to eventuate, at the moment you'd have to say no. And we are stuck with the Glazers for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. The Aussie Gooner here saying marketing move for Mbappe, but your manager isn't going to be accepting that, lads. Well, Steve, look, completely agree. You don't know Manchester United, though. The manager doesn't have a say. If the club want him, the club gets him. And Erik ten Hag will be stuck with him. And then if Erik ten Hag wants to sell someone to make room, they'll say, no, you're going to keep him as well. So we'll be in a situation where Mbappe and Antony will be on the bench. So it is a vicious cycle at Manchester United. But I completely agree with everyone's thoughts in regards to
Mbappe on the bench, Rashford and Langer starting. What a lineup.
Exactly. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Behind them.
You know, McTominay and Fred, we haven't seen that for a while. As I said, there is a very good chance that could potentially happen in the Europa League this week. But it has been an enjoyable chat, George, and everyone in the live chat. Plenty of different opinions in there. Larry and I will actually, I might not be back on Friday. Larry should be back on Friday to have a bit of a Friday night pint and discuss, hopefully, the victory against Omonia Nicosia and a little bit of a look forward to the Newcastle match as well. I'm looking forward to that Newcastle match, George, because look, it's always been a big game for me. I was growing up in the 90s as a big club, Newcastle.
I think it's bigger than ever now.
Well, they obviously went through their troubles and sort of they're on their way back, but obviously after the influx of money now, yes, it's not the big game yet, but it does have that sense that it's already a big game, two big clubs, but now it has that sense potentially going to be something in the future. It's a big game.
Absolutely, I agree, and I'm personally not confident either. As soon as Eddie Howe took over, before the money came in, by the way, they managed to scrape a 1-1 draw out of us. Mind you, I do believe we should have won that game, but they had their chances. They hit the post. Alex Isak looks like a good player coming in for them this year. Kieran Trippier will be back for them. We haven't played against Newcastle with Kieran Trippier yet, so that's a big in for him as well. Joe Linton's been a much improved player under Eddie Howe. I do rate Eddie Howe as manager as well.
Yeah, no, look, he's done very well. I thought when the money came, he obviously came in with the money after Steve Bruce. They got rid of Steve Bruce, and I was thinking, okay, yeah, good manager, decent manager, but it's a big job in terms of thing. But if you do look at their stats and records since he has come in, he has done very well. So
I'll say it now, Bruno Guimaraes walks into our midfield.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of Bruno debates. Fingers crossed our Bruno can get the better of him, because if he doesn't, the knives will be out for Bruno, as they so often are. But Isaac,
I won't be watching the IFT pod the next day. Sorry, Robert, from Newcastle, get up on us. The things RJ and Scott will say about how Bruno's better than yours.
No, that'll definitely be a discussion on Monday after the match. I think it's a Monday morning, midnight kickoff on Sunday night for us here in Australia. But Isaac here, thanks, fellas. Great show. I appreciate all the interaction, Isaac. Hope all is well. And as I said, Larry will be back on Friday with a review of the match. I'm not sure who will be joining him. And until then, hope everyone has a good couple of days. Make sure you do leave a like on the video if you are looking forward to the Man United match on against Omonia Nicosia, and obviously look ahead to the Newcastle match. And if you are new, if you could hit that subscribe button, that would be great. And I'll chat to you soon. Cheers.